All right. So we have gone live, and FYI for everyone who have already joined, we'll be streaming this on Zoom, and there'll be live streaming that is happening on YouTube Live and LinkedIn Live. So we are waiting for a few more participants to join in, and till that time, we'll try to understand the audience background for those who have already joined. So, those who have joined and would like to know from you as to what is your exposure level to data engineering as landscape. So option one is you have no idea about it whatsoever. Option two is you know about it little bit because you are directly, indirectly associated with it. You have friends who work in that arena or you started reading about it. Third, you are working in the related area of data engineering. So which of these three options describe you the best? And for those who have joined using Zoom, can type in your responses on the chat. All right, so so far predominantly it's option two. Kanika, Vinayaka, Vinay, Vinod. Thanks for responses. So basically, most of the people are little bit aware about it. They've just gotten started to explore what is data engineering. All right, Vinod is asking for YouTube link. So Sherry and team, if you can post it on chat here. Yes. All right, thanks for confirming. And second question is, how many of you are still in college versus how many of you are working professionals? So option one is you are still in college, and option two is you are working professional. All right, barring a few people, most of you are working professional. Great. Awesome. Okay. So Sherry, can you confirm if we have gone live on YouTube and LinkedIn as well?
Yes, we've gone live.
All right. Thanks for that. All right. Now we are already 3 minutes past our scheduled time to start. So let me start with the session. So I welcome you all to today's session on demystifying data engineering landscape and how to build a career in data engineering. So before I go ahead with the agenda, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Ronak Dholakia, and I am the person in charge of admissions for all data engineering, data science, and artificial intelligence-based courses at Great Learning. And today's agenda is threefold. So number one agenda point being talking about data engineering landscape. And for that, we have Sayandeb, Banerjee, and Pawan Vadulas from the TheMathCompany. So let me quickly introduce Shayan and Pawan. So Shayan is part of analytics industry since its nascency. In his illustrious career spanning over 25 years, he has spearheaded pivotal analytics transformations for organizations. His breadth of expertise encompasses entrepreneurial roles in building high caliber teams through establishing hiring and training practices, leading innovation for organizations, and heading marketing and communication initiatives, while also playing the role as a founding member of large enterprises and centers of excellence. As CEO of the TheMathCompany, Sayandeb currently leads overall organizational strategy and enables Fortune 500 and equivalent businesses to create impact through data-driven decision making. So welcome, Shayan, and we are very, very honored to have you on this platform. Thanks for taking out time.
My pleasure, Ronak and the Great Learning team.
And we have Pawan Vadulas, who is head of engineering at the TheMathCompany. Pawan wears multiple hats from coder to architect to entrepreneur. He has successfully set up engineering functions at various startups and grown them into multi-million-dollar businesses. His forte is to envision, design, implement, and market and sell big data and AI products and solutions. At the TheMathCompany, Pawan heads engineering functions, specially focusing on cloud, big data, and operationalizing machine learning. So welcome, Pawan, and on behalf of entire Great Learning community, I welcome you to today's webinar, and we are thankful for you taking out time and spending time with our community.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Right.
Shayan and Pawan are going to talk about demystifying data engineering landscape. That's agenda number one. And agenda number two is talking about the course that Great Learning and the Math Company has co-created in the field of data engineering. It is exciting, and we are very excited for this particular course because this is first of its kind data driven in it is first of its kind industry driven course in data engineering. So I'll talk about that in the second half of this particular session. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Shayan and Pawan to talk about data engineering as a landscape.
Thank you, Ronak, and welcome all of you to this session. As Ronak said, even we at Mathco are extremely excited to jointly, launch this course. But what we thought we will get started with is talk a little bit about just demystifying, what is this whole data engineering that you must be hearing a lot of buzz around us today. I will just give me 1 second. I will share my screen so that I can take us through that. All right. Okay. I'm full screen and my screen is visible, right? Okay, great. Before I get started on data engineering, just a little bit, maybe a few seconds on who we are, Math Company. I'm sure many of you would have heard about us. If you have not, we are one of the largest and rapidly growing, data and analytics company in the globe today. We are, based out of, we are an Indian company, but primarily work with large enterprises across the globe, mostly US and Europe. As you can see, we are headquartered between Bangalore, Chicago, Dublin, multiple places. We are, today a fairly large team of more than 1,200 people. And all through we have, followed this principle of full stack data scientist, which includes our expertise in engineering, domain, design, DevOps, and a plethora of stuff in order to really provide what we call our end-to-end solutions for our customers. We work primarily with large Fortune 500, many Fortune 100, some Fortune 10 or equivalent companies, which I'm sure you'll appreciate. In this journey, which is a fairly short one so far, just about little more than 5 years, but have seen one very good traction and also earn a lot of laurels and accolades. Some of the more mentionable ones being mentioned in the Gartner's most recent Magic Quadrant on data and analytics, Deloitte and a few other publications, calling us the fastest growing AI firm, so on and so forth. So that's who we are, and quite a few accolades for our talents as well. The top talents in this space. Now coming to the topic in hand, let's start with a little more fundamental, and you'll find us as a group who are very passionate about talking about more fundamentals, building blocks, because the more we learn about it, I think the better we are in application. So we'll go all the way back and ask this basic question: what is analytics? If any of you want to kind of take a shot, I'm sure you have heard this term overall called analytics. You can just type in the window. Okay, while you type, I will I'll actually have far more questions for all of you guys as we go along. It will be good if we can, at least people on Zoom, participate a little bit on the window. It will help us to understand where we are. Okay, this is again one acceptable definition is all that I'll say. It's about deriving meaningful information from collected data. So as you can see, data lies at the heart of whatever we call as analytics, which drives decisions at the end of the day, right? So it is about deriving insights to drive decisions about how to run my business better, how to earn or get more customers, how to sell more, how to optimize my cost, and so on and so forth, right? So sharper decision, faster decisions, so on and so forth, right? So now, before we go on to talk a lot more about enterprises and sharper decisions, we do see data and deriving insights from data, and therefore applications of this just in and around us every day, as we in every waking hours, right, of us. Anyone wants to again take a shot at where do you see analytics being applied in your regular day-to-day life? I'm sure some of you have experienced that already since you woke up in the morning today, or yesterday, or day before, for sure. What would be some examples of that? Okay, Google Ads, Google Maps, yes. Predominantly Google, huh? Okay. While you're wondering, you're thinking, you're absolutely right. Right. I'll probably take a couple of other examples, right, which are not necessarily Google sales data. On a day-to-day life, you don't do sales data, do you? I mean, I know you're in your work. Some of you guys, I'm sure, are using sales data, but I'm just talking about what we do or what we see in our daily life. So. Looks familiar, I'm sure, in today's world, particularly after pandemic. OTT has become part of our life. I'm not endorsing any brands here, but Netflix is a great example. How it recommends what to watch based on our viewing history is a great use of data, great use of insights from data, right? That helps us and helps Netflix to make us view more. I'm not sure if you have noticed that even if Ronak, me, and Pavan are watching the same series or the same movie, the thumbnail that shows up on our screen can be very different. I think it depends on our who we are, our preferences, location. Depending on that, it changes quite a bit. So again, it's very simple examples from a day-to-day life. Somebody talked about Google Maps. Yes, use of Google Maps in Uber, for example, right? I mean, one big area is how do you use information on the terrain, on the geography, to find optimized route, to allocate the nearest cab. Pricing for Uber, as depending on the time of the day, time of the days of the week, can vary significantly, right? I mean, which is all done by leveraging data, past behaviors, and things like that. Now, I can keep going, but I'm sure you got the gist, right? Hey, while I'm presenting, if there is something important and interesting in the chat window, Pavan, you might just call it out. Otherwise, we'll love to interact and take questions. All right. Now, given that we are talking about data, so let's look at least again one acceptable definition of data. There are many ways to define data. Now, what I put here is one acceptable way of defining data, which is like simple facts and figures or information that's stored for reference or analysis. Nowadays, it's important that we call out information because in the past, right, 10 years, 15 years back, data always meant just facts and figures, rows and columns of data. Now everything is data, right? This webinar that we are doing, this being recorded, the video and the audio of this webinar is data for somebody to analyze, right? They can probably analyze and see how many times Shayan said kind of, right, during the whole presentation, and not something as trivial, but there could be something more important that can be derived out of these, or a bunch of images from a website and things like that. So the data world is our focus, because we are going to talk about data engineering, demystify and its place in this broad world of analytics, the way we look at it. Just a few examples of data, where you kind of save a lot of contact data, that can become your source. Weather data, big, again, source of a lot of intelligence today. A lot of things rides on analyzing weather data and predicting it better. One snapshot from SBB, the public transport system in Switzerland. Their train schedules to different destinations. So the data of this one from the past can tell you a lot about how it is functioning. Okay, so again, there are data is all around us. Let's put it that way. So let's look at data a little more deeply. Let's take a step back and look at evolution of data. When things started, it was all about business activity, transactions. What do I mean by that? Buying and selling, right? What am I buying? How much am I buying? What am I selling? How much am I selling? When have I sold? At what price? So if you have heard this, ERP and all those transaction systems, those are the primary sources. So all data was about business activities. Slowly, into the I would say more into the late 90s, or even sometimes during the 90s itself, more customer data started coming into the picture, right? Obviously, some industries like banks always had to store some amount of customer data by definition, but other industries where it was all about the goods and the services being produced started to save and collect customer data. Who is it? Is it Ronak who is buying it? Is it Vinayaka is buying it, or Pawan who is buying it? Who is buying it, or who is selling it to me? What are their characteristics? What do they like? What is their gender? What is their profile? So a lot of questions. So that's what constituted what is called CRM data. Kind of became a big one. Then came the world of internet. Bunch of stuff started kind of forming data, and that lead to the present. I would call it the data explosion, if you will, right? Everything is data around us. Data is primarily, when you talk about data, people generally give examples of social. How much of data is getting generated by Twitter, just by WhatsApp, right? By Facebook, LinkedIn, so and so forth, right? This is plenty of data. But as you can see, data is exploding, right? And therefore, it is becoming far more critical that how do you really tame data? How do you put your hand around data and derive those insights? It's no longer about 100 rows of facts and figures, right? It is no longer about that. So how does data enables business? Just very simply put, I'll give you a simple example. As I said, one of the earliest use cases or use of data was with banks. For example, loan application. You apply for a loan, I apply for a loan gets collected, right? You fill up a form, and you do. Today, mostly these are digital online forms that gets filled. There are yeah. So not just one application, bunch of application that comes in, right? So maybe many years back, when you are just getting one application a day, you can absolutely have somebody who gleans through the application, looks into all nitty-gritties and decide, okay, this is good, right? I mean, I can go ahead and give the loan. Today there are thousands, sometimes there are in lakhs, and sometimes in crores overall, those applications that can come in. And for you to be able to analyze that, you need to look at this as data sources, information sources, and therefore derive insights of it. So what we do, and Pawan will talk a lot more about it, what we do to start with, just to get this data into a stage, right, where even anything can be done, is what broadly gets called as data engineering, right? How do you extract this data meaningfully? How do you create the pipelines? How do you stage them in the right place? And honestly, it's a large field, and it is also exploding along with data, honestly. But what you see is that it's the starting block, right? I mean, without this being done properly, or this being done at all, nothing else is possible. There's a huge dependency of what otherwise is called data science. Again, all of these forms, this broad array that we spoke about, guys, at the beginning, is about deriving insights from data to make decisions, right? So that's the journey in which, that's how kind of things moves. You generate insights. Data science is where you sometimes combine this data, look at some trends, patterns, make some sense, maybe build a model, predictive model, to derive insights that which application is good, who is likely to pay this money back in the future, who may default. Therefore, you take decisions. As I said, it is all about faster decisions, smarter decisions, applications accepted or rejected, right, based on your prediction of that. But as you can see, even in this very, very simplistic way of describing this path, data engineering sits like at the cusp where, if not done right, everything else breaks down, right? And therefore, what we see as practitioners today is a tremendous amount of demand for good data engineering, not just people, resources, but practices. How do you get that part right? Because as it says, right, I mean, that's like more than half the battle won, and then you can absolutely do other things, and Pawan will give you a couple of examples. Okay, I will take a break here. I'm more than happy to later on when we talk to take questions, but I'll pass it on to Pawan to take us through the rest of it. I will stop sharing. Just give me 1 second.
Thank you, Shan.
Yeah, can you take it over?
You'll have to stop sharing, then I can.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I was not able to locate the stop share for a change. Okay, thank you guys. Yeah, so let's now talk a little more about kind of engineering, and Pawan may move a little fast. If you have specific questions, this is a good opportunity for you to kind of understand what is this whole engineering, data engineering is all about in the space of data. And obviously, as Ronak said, he will take us through the course per se, which we'll talk towards the end.
Absolutely. Thanks, Shan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly talk about how we do engineering as such at Mathco, and then deep dive into some specific real world cases where data has actually led to moving the needle in the business, right? Why we are talking so much about data is it's very important for us to realize that data drives decision making, right? And we get better at, changing decisions, and then which, impacts business, right? We have to look at it end to end. So what our philosophy is threefold. We look at people, right? So we have extensive capabilities and initiatives where we run, in which we enable our people. We realize that people are very, very important when we have to make these changes. We have a keen focus on technology, right? With the advent of data, you have to harness that data. So that means there needs to be infrastructure, there needs to be, reporting, there needs to be the end-to-end ops, technology that is involved. So we have a very good focus on technology, and we know that if we have to differentiate ourselves, we have to have a baseline which is faster and better than others, right? So we have dedicated specific frameworks which actually leads to changing the business, right? Let's as we move forward, let's see how we can contextualize into a couple of real world use cases, right? If we have to look at what we do and what are the pillars that engineering or even analytics value chain stands on, I can broadly decide into three different components. One is what we call as data landscaping, right? So this is basically to ensure that you get data into a certain format and a place in which you can consume it better, right? What we see right now is there are very different sources of data, very different velocity of data coming in. So there needs to be a certain place, infrastructure, and a location where you grab all of these, put it into a certain place, layer it, structure it differently so that my downstream use cases or applications can use it. It could be as simple as just reading a text file. It could be a complex system of an AI engine, or it could be just a simple dashboard, right? Multiple varied use cases. This is what we call as data landscaping. Then comes our brain, which is more of algorithmic thinking, math, and stats, which we call as data science. And the third part is where we actually productize these different insights that our data science pillars generate, right? So gone are the days where we just look at dashboards as a recommendation, for example, Netflix example, right? So gone are the days where you just recommend something on a dashboard, right? So it has to have a recommendation engine which gets plugged into the Netflix whole ecosystem. There is a feedback loop, and in real time it quite changes, right? So for us to enable all these three pillars, there is a foundation called operationalizing analytics. This is more on the ecosystem, which is cloud, plus automation, which is ops, right? The trend these days is more on DevOps and data ops, basically, which means that how do I think about operationalizing end to end before I even start development, right? So that I can get to business value faster, better, and quicker. So based on all of these is how we drive business value. Yeah. So let's get into it, right? So what do we do in data engineering as such when we say Mathco, right? We can divide into three big components. I know data engineering as a whole is quite big. I'm going to make it very, very easy for us to understand what we do, right? First, we call it as data platform, right? So this is the heart of the matter, right? Any organization you look at, they create multiple siloed different data platforms based on their business units, business value. What happens is because of these siloed disparate sources, there is no single connectivity that happens, right? Once you connect it, you can drive immense insights and immense value. So we concentrate on creating these centralized repos of data. You call it as a data lake. Now the new trend is data mesh. How do I connect these different siloed systems and create a mesh, right? That's one of our key components when we talk about data engineering. The other one is data orchestration, right? The olden days, we used to call it as ETL, basically, extract, transform, and load. But nowadays, it's more about how do I orchestrate the end-to-end flow of data? We can call it as data plumbing, data optimization, data pipelining. But end of the day, it is movement of data, and how do I orchestrate it? I'll tell you why it is very important these days to orchestrate and not just, transform and load it, right? Because now is the time when there is immense pipelines that are happening. So you need to basically modular it, reuse it, and gone are the days where you write one pipeline for every use case, right? So now is the time for consolidation so that you can scale going forward. So when that is the case, you need to basically orchestrate it better. That's the whole part of orchestration, right? And the third part is in terms of governance. Unless you govern the whole system properly, you will not be able to get the desired quality, desired access control, desired data discoverability, right? So when we talk about business units, often we hear challenges like, hey, there are multiple different use cases, multiple teams are running a lot of algorithms and generating data, but I'm not able to discover it, right? I don't even know where what sits. I don't even know if I should be trusting it, right, for my downstream applications. That comes in the gambit of data governance. Right now, I'll get to the interesting bits, right? So this is the end result, right? So what do we need to do as individuals, as growing professionals? What are the skill sets we need to have? I'm sure many of you would have seen this. This is like a very a famous article describing what are the data engineering skill sets everyone needs to have for you to be called as a great data engineer, right? And often we get so confused that, hey, where do we start? What do we do? There are so many different concepts. There are so many different tools, technologies in the industry right now. And that's where we are like partnered with the Great Learning to figure out what are the basic skill sets that are required for you to basically lay that foundation, A, and be agile enough to build on top of it, right? So let me simplify it, and this is what we follow extensively in our organization. And hopefully through this course, I'm sure you will also get this foundation built up. At the heart of it, we have to be a proficient programmer. You can pretty much choose any programming language in the world, but right now the two best ones are Python and Scala that are there in the industry, which helps our be a data engineer, right? This means that how do I code better? Can I use ops-oriented concepts? Can I use functional programming, so on and so forth? This is basically to ensure that you're thinking through and write a program in terms of poetry, right? That's what it means. Then comes automation and scripting. The world is moving towards actually automating end to end. Gone are the days where you're just only writing one piece of script. You have to think through multiple things. So that's where shell scripting and cron will add a lot of value, because you're talking about cloud, you're talking about how do I put it on a VM, so on and so forth. Then comes the heart of the matter. How do I process the data faster, better, quicker? Depending on different disparate sources, it could be batch. You could be running a nightly job to basically aggregate a lot of sales data to generate a report. It could be as simple as that, or it could be real stream data where you're talking about listening to social media feeds to see what is the sentiment of a campaign that I have run. Right, all this comes under your mastering your data processing techniques. Then comes, how do I store it, right? Unless you store it in specific locations, you'll not be able to use it for downstream. So it can be divided into, hey, I don't know where and when I will use. That becomes your data lake. Then you can say, hey, I know where I can use this. I know the structure of it. That becomes your database and warehouse. And now there is a new trend where you're connecting both, right? And it becomes your data mesh. So that is in terms of understanding warehouses. Then comes your orchestration. Now you know that I know how do I process, I know how do I store, where I store, is when you become the orchestrator, right? It's like running your own orchestration, right? It's like a music that you will do, right? Basically defining from where data flows to where, right? And eventually, right, without cloud, we are nowhere. Cloud is the present as well as the future. Because of cloud, we are able to harness this extreme velocity and volume of data for us to drive certain use cases, which changes the game in terms of business. In a nutshell, I think this should be your foundation layer on top of which you can build your career. And this is when you can be called as an engineer slash data engineer. I'm going to take a pause. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, we can just deep dive into some real world use cases, make it very real on what we have done and how you can, think about how data engineering adds a lot of value to business.
So Pawan, there are two questions that has come my way. So one from Prashant, and his question is software engineering and data engineering the same?
Not entirely. Software engineering is a very big gambit of things, right? So initially in the traditional world, it was called software engineering because we used to build software for, moving the needle on the business side. What happened is as cloud, took off and data took off, there was a need for us to basically scope box and say, hey, data engineering itself is a specialization, right? So in essence, you become a software engineer first and then become a data engineer. But right now, these terms are little muddled because of how marketing is done and how you are perceived. But eventually, the core concepts and the foundational blocks are same. You need to know your programming language very, very, very well before you get onto the data side. As you move along to the data side, you're called as a data engineer. As you move along to, let's say, a product world or an application development, you're called more of a software engineer these days.
Thanks, Pawan. And somewhat related question is from Jayesh, who is asking, is data engineering equivalent to data management?
Sure. So data management is a huge concept. Let me just take a step back here, right? You see the data governance side. This is managing of data, right? So data management is a whole gambit where you basically manage end-to-end flow. So it is like an Uber level overarching concept and theory in which there are smaller components, right? There is one component called quality. How do I ensure that quality is there in each of my data streams? That becomes one gambit. There is something called as a data cataloging. Hey, can I just catalog all my data for someone to easily, refer and use? This becomes data discovery and data cataloging. That becomes one gambit. There is something called as a master data management, which basically you say, hey, I can call US as just US or USA or United States. All three means the same thing, but in my row, in my data set, it is all different. How do I ensure that all three means the same thing so that when I do a report, I don't get three different columns? When I aggregate, all of them is the same thing. So that becomes master data management. So all of these bundles up into managing your whole data, and that becomes data management. Now, as a data engineer, these are your basic skill sets. As you build on top, then you become an MDM expert, then you become a quality expert, so on and so forth. So I would say data engineering is the first level, and as you specialize in certain areas, you get to be those SMEs or experts. Hope I answered.
Yeah. So I just want to add one thing here, and I know I saw another question that came up around what is the difference between data engineering and product engineering. So one thing, guys, just keep in mind, there are a lot of confusions prevailing around in this world today in terms of these definitions, right? I mean, what do you call what? And honestly, if you ask 5 different people, 10 different people, you are bound to get 10 slightly different answers, and sometimes wildly different answers as well. So my general, always 25 years of experience tells me that, instead of getting caught up into the definition, because I don't think the definition will lead you to anywhere. If you can focus on what needs to get done, like Pawan was saying, instead of getting into software engineering, data engineering, what are the different components of data engineering? Start with programming, use automation, then data flow, so on and so forth, right? So please, only thing is that, and this will be true for anything in life. If you can focus on, and if somebody asks me that question, I generally ask them back saying that, okay, you're saying, how is it different from software engineering? Define software engineering for me, because maybe the definition is of data engineering. Somebody is just calling it software engineering or product engineering. So just be a little careful about, these jargons that gets thrown today all around. I mean, I hear 10 new things every day, and once I start thinking about what it is, I said, oh wow, that's something that is already happening. But maybe just one line on product engineering as well before you go to the example.
Absolutely. I think this is the best example that I can give.
Okay, good. So
Right.
let's talk about the example, and it will become clear. Great segue. Yeah.
Absolutely. This is a great segue for us, right? Okay. So this is one of the biggest project that we ever did at Mathco, and it's really huge, and I'm personally very proud, right? So this was for one of the multinational manufacturer of confectionery, pet food, and other food products, right? The use case that they came up with was for an R&D team in the company, right? So they used to do a lot of R&D in terms of, hey, what kind of materials or what kind of food items can go in creating a product, right? When they say product, is a food product, right? Let's say a chocolate kind of a product, right? So there was quality in it. There was in terms of, hey, I already have a lot of data products that I have already built, right? Which gives me a lot of these information, right? But it is in disparate locations. It is not even connected. And there are interdependencies between these products. There are like 20-25 different software products that are there. So the ask was from the R&D team, I don't know, I don't have visibility on what my other team member or other data product is doing. Can I get an integrated view of all of these different products, right? For me to move the needle on the business side of things. So that was one of the asks that they had, right? The other one important ask that they had was, I am not able to converse with the data as freely, as fast that I want, right? We have built a lot of dashboards. It is giving me canned reports, canned information, but I am not able to do a double click. I'm not able to say that, hey, okay, this is what you have given me. Can I do a deep dive? I have a lot of questions in my mind. How can you make it easy for me to converse with data? So these were two largely important business challenges or asks from our client that was there, right? So what did we do? So we designed a specific cockpit, right? So we integrated all of these different data products into one single place. And I will do a quick demo of the product, and I'll explain how data, product, and software engineering are all playing a different role in making this happen, right? So basically, we brought in all of the information together into one location. At the back end, we had to build data lake and data mesh to integrate the data layer, and then build a product on top of that, right? So what did it do? It increased like 40% increase in collaboration. There were multiple team members which were started to collaborate. They knew, hey, that team is performing these things. How can I use some of those learnings here, so on and so forth, right? The other one was faster and accurate decision making, right? Cross product linkages, right? This attuned to almost 1 million ROI in the 1 year, right? And the third part was we built a contextual AI chatbot for them to basically converse with the data better and faster. All right. Without much further ado, let me quickly take you to the demo of it, right? Okay, so this is the product that we built, right? So this is an R&D group which has 4 to 5 different business units inside. Basically, there is a finished products unit where they look at, hey, what are the different toxins that needs to go into my product? Can I look at those trends, right? So this is one of the examples there, right? Finished goods. I have multiple different brands, multiple different finished goods. Can I look at the history of that? Can I look at the trends that are going on, right? There was a different group which looked at compliance, which looked at raw ingredients, right? Quality as such. So when you're talking about food industry, it has to have certain quality grade of materials that are coming in for me to say, okay, yay or nay, right? So some of those, right? Then once I have released some of these products, they wanted to do a social media listening kind of a concept, right? How is my products performing? What are the different trends, so on and so forth, right? So these were different products. Some of them were already built. Some of them were already in process of building. When I say product, it is more of dashboards. It could be Tableau dashboards. It could be Power BI dashboards, so on and so forth. So the first thing that we did, what we did over here was, we realized that we have to interconnect the data systems at the back, right? Data has to flow from each other. So we had to build a platform. So what we did to begin with was to build an extensive data layer, which will interconnect. So that means pipelining, orchestration, and data governance, right? So all three aspects of whatever I do, right? All of them are there. On top of that, what we did was we built screens, we built applications. So that becomes your product development. So to go back to your earlier question, productizing insights is what we call as product engineering in our world, right? Any insight or any algorithm that generates a business value, how can I basically club it and make sure that it's consumed easily for our business user, is what we call as products. And from an engineering perspective, how do we build it? Basically, how do I build the screens? How do I build the backend? How do I make sure that it is scalable? How do I deploy it? How do I maintain it? All of these are running behind in my mind. So these specific skill sets make me a product engineer. If I'm doing everything and anything to do deal with data to enable this product, that becomes my data engineering, and specific skill sets over there becomes a data engineering skill set. But eventually, like how Shayan was saying, if I have to go ahead and build this tool, I need to basically think through end to end. I need skill sets of data engineering, data science, DevOps, and product engineering, right? And we can club all those things with foundation, saying foundation is not going to be different. You need to know the cloud. You're working on product or data science, right? That's why we have designed our foundational layer. So once you have that, you can either pivot to a data engineer or towards a product engineer, or definitely towards a data scientist, right? And that's how probably our thought process is, and that's how the industry is also tending towards, because we are looking at how do I productize it. Once I have built it, I should not be doing it again and again. How do I scale it to different countries? If I build it for Germany, how do I use the same for US, right? Some of those thinking and thought process is what enables us to be, a good product or a data engineer.
So,
sorry.
So Pawan, in the we are about 15 minutes left. In the interest of the time, I know you have probably at least one more use case that we talk through. But Ronak, will it be a good time for you to talk about the course a little bit, and then we leave some time for maybe there are more questions that people have? We can probably take that.
Right, because makes sense.
We can keep this is a great example that covers almost every aspect of it. But we can talk of very specific, more use cases, examples, and in the future we absolutely would love to do that probably with the same group. Ronak, we can
right.
Yeah,
absolutely. I'll just take 1 minute before Ronak, you can get into that question.
I was just wondering, why is Pawan not getting there?
sorry. So yeah, this was the second
object.
this was the second part of it, where we actually made sure that you converse with the data better, right? So what we built is more of a cognitive analytics assistant. This can sit up top of any data set, and you can converse through speech or text, right? I'll just quickly do a demo, and then we can get into so basically, like, let's say you ask a question in terms of, hey, can you chart between volume and price, or let's say sales by year, right? So it directly gives me certain charts that I can either export, I can send it to people, I can just save it as an analysis, or I can just comment or brainstorm with other folks in my company, right? And it also suggests what can I do a deep dive next, right? So this becomes very easy for any CXO level to the granular analyst level to converse with the data better, right? And then there are multiple other features where you can save it and send it, and like basically ensure that you collaborate on the data, right? So that was my quick 1 minute demo. But yes, Ronak, if needed, we can come back. Let's go with the questions.
Right. Thanks, Pawan. This was really insightful. I thoroughly enjoyed, going through the use cases, and especially the last one where you showcased those interactive charts. Maybe, Shan suggested we could do in-depth run through of those examples, some other week, some other time with similar audience. So
Absolutely.
thanks, Pawan, for walking us through that. Now, earlier, as I said, for those who joined a bit late, the second part of today's agenda was to talk about the curriculum that the Math Company and Great Learning have put together and co-created a course in data engineering. So I'll take 5 more minutes to talk about that, and then remaining 10-15 minutes we'll reserve for answering questions that our candidates have posted. So let me share my screen. So before I go into the course, let me very briefly talk about Great Learning. I'm sure all of you must know about us, but still let me give you my perspective of how we look at ourselves. So Great Learning is India's largest and finest edtech company focusing on helping professionals upskill themselves. And we take a lot of pride in delivering outcomes that we have done all this while in making sure that professionals of today are future proofing their careers, right? So gone are those days when person with one degree could assume that they are settled for life, right? In this fast changing digital economy where new tools, new technology, new skill set is required, right? So people need to upskill themselves, and we help um, uh, professionals to make sure that they stay relevant with technology of today and the future. So over course of last 8 to 9 years, we have impacted lives of about 4.5 million plus learners, and we have a network of 4,000 plus industry experts who act as mentors to our candidates and make sure that they impart all their expertise in different areas so that learners are able to cope up with technology of today and future. And we have a corporate pool of about 12,000 plus hiring partners who hire from our pool of candidates on an ongoing basis. And we do not only have people learning from India, but we have a learner base that spreads across 170 plus countries. Right? Now, talking about the course that the Math Company and Great Learning have put together. So the course is named Postgraduate Program in Data Science and Engineering with specialization in data engineering. It's a 9-month duration course, and the delivery format is online. So over the weekday, you need to consume about 2 to 3 hours of video lectures, followed by live weekend classes, which happens over the weekend. And you'll have a periodic master classes from industry experts, like you have a master class today to give you a primer on data engineering landscape from the Math Company folks. Similarly, you will have access to lot many live master classes from industry experts on various components of data engineering as a part of the course. We follow a continuous assessment process where on a periodic basis you need to undertake quizzes, projects and capstone projects, and all these projects and case studies are based on what industry is trying to solve today, so that our courses are industry relevant. And we provide dedicated career assistance where we help you with interview preparation so that you're able to crack jobs in top companies. We help you with resume building, soft skills training, and mock interviews. We provide you dedicated placement assistance, and we provide you up to 10 interview opportunities, including one from the Math Company. So as a part of this particular course, folks who meet the placement eligibility criteria, they are given up to 10 interview opportunities and one assured interview opportunity from the Math Company. And the curriculum is very much in sync with what is required of a good data engineer. So we start with Python for data engineering. As Pawan mentioned in his presentation, that the foundational block to learn data engineering is to be proficient in programming. So we start with building that basic block on Python, and then we move on to databases, data modeling, warehousing and access. How do you store data? How do you retrieve data in an efficient manner? And given that the stream of data engineering evolved because the volume and the velocity of data has increased many times. So just to give you perspective, like 90% of data that exists in today's world was created in last 5 to 10 years. So that is the speed with which we are adding data today. And then we move on to model deployment and cloud. Then we cover Apache Airflow and then data engineering on cloud. So those of you who are interested to know more about the program can go to our website and check out postgraduate program in data science and engineering, specialization in data engineering. Download the brochure and you can get in touch with our program advisors who will guide you more about the program duration and the intended outcome. So this is a brief overview of the course, and now we can go to Q&A and we can take questions that you had based on what you learned or heard so far. All right. So a few questions that folks who are watching this on YouTube have posted. So is data engineering and data science like the roles are interchangeable? So for example, somebody working or acquiring skill set of a data engineering, can they work on the data science side as well and vice versa? Is it possible?
Sure. Pawan, want to take that?
No, absolutely. So yeah, so commonality is data, right? So so basically we use data to drive business decision making, right? For which you need to engineer data to a format in which you can run your algorithms, right? So data science and data engineering is connected in the hip, without which you cannot survive, right? So both of them have to go together hand in hand. That's why we are a big proponent of full stack in the future, right? So you need to have these two skill sets for you to grow and be of course it is interchangeable. We have a lot of different data scientists who do a lot of data engineering work and vice versa in our organization, and they choose certain career paths separately as well. All three options are open, not just at Mathco but in the industry as well.
Yeah, no, I was about to just add to that, Pawan, that the current industry trend is in that direction. The hard line saying that this is data engineering and then I pass it over to data science. I think more and more one actually have proficiency around both, again over a period of time, not that you can master everything in one shot, but as long as we have proficiency on both, you really stand a very good chance of creating a great career, creating a lot of value using data, and that is where the world is moving. So yeah.
Thanks, Shannon. Thanks, Pawan. So the next question that has come again from viewers from YouTube is this skill set tough to acquire for somebody who is a beginner? And I'm assuming that question is in the context of somebody who is not very proficient in programming. Can they acquire this skill set, or will it be very tough for them?
No, I don't think it is tough at all. First, I think this is a very preconceived notion that people have, that only a computer scientist or a computer science graduate can get into this course. We at Mathcompany have so many different, background, very different background people and diverse different background, and actually adds value, right? We have had mechanical engineers, civil engineers actually get into this field. So, but the core foundational blocks remain the same. Maybe you might find it a little difficult in the beginning for the first couple of months. My advice is ride through it, and once you get onto the other side, you'll enjoy. Right? I don't think it is difficult for you to acquire those skills. The foundational blocks are same. And it's more on thinking rather than syntactical or programming, right? Programming is about how do you think. It's all about problem solving. As long as you're thinking through that way, you should be able to acquire the skill very fast.
Right. So I'll just add on a bit to what you said, Pawan. So I agree with you that in the beginning it might be a bit tough, because had it been so easy, then everybody would be, acquiring this skill set. There wouldn't be such mismatch between the demand of jobs and the supply of the talent. So right now, as I have been following this, what I foresee or what I see right now is there is a lot of demand of data engineers, but supply is on the lower side, right? So had it been so easy, this mismatch wouldn't have been there. And this is precisely the reason where this course comes into the picture, where we have curated topics which form about 20 to 30% of the concepts, but are used like 70 to 80% of the time on the real world job, right? So this is where we come into picture. This is where the math companies, industry expertise come into the picture, right? So while it's not very easy, but it's not impossible at all, and it might be tough, let's say for first 2 months, but then after that the playing field becomes leveled vis-a-vis someone who knows programming versus somebody who doesn't know it.
Absolutely. And probably a point to add on is it's very difficult when it is not taught right. Right. And that's why I mean, at least within our teams, we are very particular in laying those foundational blocks. And once you have those, you should be able to, grasp those skills better. But yeah, I agree with you.
Right. So another question that has flown in is, so data science is very, very popular. Everyone, understands or at least has heard about it. But is data engineering going to be a field which is going to, succeed or supersede data science? Or is it going to be like a subset, or the demand is going to be lower as compared to data science, or is it going to be more than that? So what's your take on this plan?
Maybe I should take this. What you stated as a fact is probably right. And if I go back again, maybe 5 years, 10 years, the same question came up in a different way, that everybody knows about software development, or what you call as software engineering or something. I'm hearing this new thing called data science, or at that time maybe the name was different. Will this ever be a like a full-time career that somebody can pursue? I have heard that question so many times. It's interesting that today we are hearing that everybody has heard about data science, which is fantastic. But you must, so I gave that example to tell you that this was exactly where data science, or some of these algorithm building exercise was 10 years back, not that far off, right? Today, because as you said, everybody knows about it, there are a lot of people who are pursuing that space. It is also becoming a little more common. It is becoming, and I can say that very confidently because of being in this industry for all these years and seeing the changes happening. It is becoming a little more common, what is called commoditized. The big area, and which I said at the beginning of my when I was presenting, is that as data is exploding, variety and velocity and veracity of data is increasing every second, and not about every day, every minute. It is about every second. The need for engineering and really mastering this data and getting it into shape and size and make all those fancy things that Pawan talked about happen is growing rapidly. Okay, let me take it to myself. I, as an employer, let me put it, forget about CEO, founder, as an employer, probably find the biggest challenge today to find quality data engineers. I'm not saying there are plenty of quality data scientists as well, but relatively, and as I go look into the future, I absolutely see, and I suggest people that, hey, at least to my nephews and some of my relatives who come for career counseling, is that absolutely, I know you're talking about data science, a little bit of machine learning and things like that. There are lot of good fancy words, but believe me, there are enough supply also that is slowly getting to the market. The place where we struggle most to get good quality data engineers, right? That is where the future will be a balanced future in my mind. If I look 10 years ahead, I don't think we will have these big divides in terms of data, like what Pavan was saying earlier, data engineering, data science. It will be about the full stack analytics professionals who will work with data to make better decisions, right, towards the end. But as of now, this is an area which will absolutely be absolutely worth doing. I'm not saying, and that's the reason why we kind of were so interested to partner with Grape Learning. They're interested to work with us together to launch this course, because we know that this will be very important for us as the industry, for you as a somebody who is looking at their career. Anything, Ronak? I mean, you guys also see another side of the world. Would you like to add anything, or Pavan? This is a good question that you asked this question.
Yeah, so one thing that we have been, and one of the reasons why we collaborated with the Math Company on this particular course is we were seeing that increasingly from the pool of our recruiters who hire from our pool of candidates, while there's a lot of supply from our side on data science candidates, but for data engineering, right, we were not able to give them enough supply because there was not enough talent around data engineering. While there were a lot of employers who were asking for data engineer folks, let alone good. I mean, good comes when there's enough supply to choose from, right? So there was not even supply of data engineers. So this is where we thought that why don't we create something based on what actually employers are looking for it today. And Shayan, I was talking to some of the folks at the Math Company who are engaged with hiring with us. So they were talking about what, and again you can comment on this and verify this. What they were saying is the rate at which you are hiring and you foresee the team of data engineers to grow within the Math Company is going to be lot of in multiples of 5 to 10 times as compared to the growth that you foresee to happen in the science teams.
Absolutely, 100% agreed. And that will tell you the need in the industry, because we will only hire based on where the demand is, right? And the demand is there. And if you go back to my slide on the whole process, that unless this part of the world is done right, all the cool work around data science, whatever you think about, will all fall flat, right? So this is foundation, this is building block. This has to be the future. And yes, I'm sure as the industry is waking up, it will become more and more popular. Okay, I just realized that
just one point to add. You can summarize data engineering as recession proof. It's a showstopper for every business organization. If your pipelines don't work, you cannot take any decisions. You cannot, business stops, right?
Yeah.
So that's the reason why even in like COVID times, as well as even now, that we see engineering or data engineering as such huge demand, especially for quality.
All right, so that brings us to the end of this session. I was going through the chats and the chat from the YouTube feed. I don't think we have any questions that are unanswered. So I think that brings us an end to this particular session. And I thank once again to Shayan and Pavan for taking out time on a Saturday afternoon to interact with our community of learners. So thank you once again.
Thank you, you guys, and thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you, our pleasure.
All right.